motivated. Some people let me get them, I know they hate it, cause we winning and motivated, glistening and inundated with swagger. I'm trying to keep with my daughter to hear some bullshit. Not from Chicago, so don't talk to me about bullshit. Niggas in the motherfucking game wanna talk about the swag and the ice and the whips they dry. But a nigga like me getting bread, showing love, so the niggas don't respect my grind. It's going down, chasing the crown. About to be one of the illest around, like Justin Rihanna and Kanye. Nigga, I'm running the town. Slow it down, my rope was tight, so you can cut the. If you a dog, I'm Michael V. I take a nigga girl, I don't play fair. I take him to the bedroom, and they stay there. Wanna be mine, I'm gonna climb, give me mine. Running out of time, money on the line, gotta shine. Give it a look out when I try, won't stop. Vision in my mind, rock star on top. Wait a minute, when a nigga really get it, I'ma go off. I gotta prove it to him. I think I'm MJ. I'm trying to eat, you trying to sleep. If you a dog, then I'm a beast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, misery bots of all ages, back again with another video. This time I want to talk about, should the Steam Deck OLED get a price reduction? But before we do, if you like that intro music, definitely check out the Adrian Rockstar SoundCloud in the descriptions below. Let's get into the video. Now, the Steam Deck OLED, as it stands right now, is going for about $520, $550, somewhere around there. It's about $100 more than the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, for its time, that was a great price. $550 for its great price. And let's not take into account, let's not forget that you can get a refurbished Steam Deck OLED for like $430 or something like that. You get it for less than a Switch 2. But the $550 price mark for its time wasn't bad, especially when it launched, due to the fact that the Steam Deck OLED was still the value champion. It was still amongst the cheapest handhelds you can get outside of the base Steam Deck, the LCD Steam Deck, and the regular Nintendo Switch, which at that point, the Nintendo Switch 1 had already been out for about 5-6 years, if not, I think almost 7 years actually at that point. So obviously the Steam Deck was the better handheld, better than the original Nintendo Switch, which was weaker and had older hardware. And then you think of stuff like the Ally, the Asus Ally, ROG Ally, and the Legion Go and all that. And those are stronger devices, but they were also a lot more expensive than the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck OLED had like this really good middle ground between the Switch 1, which was weaker and older hardware, and like the ROG Ally and Legion Go, which were newer hardware but were more expensive. The Steam Deck was still a very capable device and was cheaper than those more expensive alternatives. And it was more powerful than the original Nintendo Switch. But now we are in a market in which the Steam Deck OLED is no longer the cheapest handheld, at least in terms of value, price to performance. Now it's going to be the Nintendo Switch 2, which is going to be about $100 cheaper than the Steam Deck OLED, but be more powerful than the Steam Deck OLED. That could be a problem, as the Steam Deck OLED can't really justify its price if it's not the most powerful for that price. The next thing too is, obviously, again, the Switch 2 is $100 cheaper, and it's going to be more powerful. Like it may not be drastically like night and day more powerful, but it will be a more powerful system at $100 less. So it would then pose the question as to, okay, then why would I get a Steam Deck OLED when I can get a Nintendo Switch 2 for $100 less, and it's a more powerful device, as well as some of the other things the Nintendo Switch 2 can do outside that the Steam Deck cannot do, like physical cartridges and stuff like that. So it's going to be really difficult for the OLED to really continue selling at the capacity it's been selling at that price point, when there is going to be another competitor selling for a cheaper price, a more powerful product at a cheaper price. And I know a lot of people don't want to say like, yo, the Steam Deck is a PC handheld, it's not a competitor to the Nintendo Switch. at the end of the day, they're still competing for the handheld space. They're still competing for the handheld market. At the end of the day, they may not be direct competitors, but it's going to be that situation where when we're talking about portable gaming, what are people going to want to utilize more? Will they utilize the Nintendo Switch or the Steam Deck? And in that space, that they are definitely competing. And if you're talking about a more powerful handheld being at a cheaper price, that's definitely going to cut into the Steam Deck's market. You also have to take into account that the Switch 2 is widely popular. Widely popular. It's coming off of the massive success of the Nintendo Switch 1. And if sales and pre-orders has anything to say, the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be amongst the best-selling portables of all time. It's going to be up there with it because like these pre-order sales are absolutely ridiculous. And it may end up drowning out sales from the Steam Deck. It's definitely going to maybe impact sales from the Steam Deck because people are going to be too busy looking at the Nintendo Switch and nobody's really going to be looking at that Steam Deck OLED. The OLED also released November 16th of 2023. So the OLED has actually been out for about a year and a half now. And by the time the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out, it'll be closing in on that 2 year mark. You also have to factor in that the OLED has components in there that are about 4 years old now. Because like a lot of components in there, like the Zen 2 chip or whatever, is from about 4 years ago. So it is now the reverse of the Switch One and Steam Deck conversation, where now the Steam Deck is actually the one packing like the older hardware. The difference is back then when the Switch was packing the older hardware, the Switch was also the cheaper uh, handheld, where the Steam Deck would also have to make that adjustment. Now, the only thing that may affect the Steam Deck OLED not going down in price is everything that's happening in gaming right now. Right now, you have the tariffs that are increasing the prices of everything, and it will and is even starting to impact the gaming scene, such as like the price of consoles this generation. Like, if I'm not mistaken, like PlayStation had already increased the price of their console, the PlayStation 5, in certain regions. Not America yet, but trust me, it's most likely going to come. Xbox just announced that they're doing massive increases to their Xbox Series consoles, which is crazy because you would think 4 or 5 years into a generation, those consoles would actually be going down in price. But no, this is like one of the first times in history where during a generation, the older consoles, the current consoles are actually going up in price. And best believe that's going to impact the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. As of right now, Nintendo is keeping it at $450, but it won't surprise me that after the original pre-orders sell out, that somewhere down the line, whether it be 6 months or a year after the Nintendo Switch 2 has launched, that the price of the Nintendo Switch 2 increases from 450 to maybe $500 or maybe $550, and they'll blame the tariffs for it. So the problem with that happening is that if that happens, it won't really incentivize Valve to decrease the price of the Steam Deck OLED. Even you also have to take into account that Valve themselves, especially like the OLED model, may also be affected by the tariffs. They may get affected by the tariffs due to the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, the OLEDs, the Steam Decks aren't made in America. So this gaming thing right now is crazy. Gaming has gotten so expensive, and although I feel like the Steam Deck OLED should get a decrease in price from maybe 550 to at least down to 450, the chances of that happening, especially now in this particular economy and gaming generation, is unfortunately highly unlikely. I can see the Steam Deck remaining at $550. I pray that it doesn't go up any higher than that. But as much as I would like for the price of the Steam Deck OLED to go down, like get an official price cut to maybe $450 at least, I I don't see it happening. If it was any other generation, if we wasn't dealing with tariffs and stuff like that, I do think the introduction of something like the Switch 2 would have forced a company like Valve to maybe decrease the price of the Steam Deck to be more competitive. But man, times is hard. So if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out the Adrian Rockstar SoundCloud in the descriptions below.
Now people let me get 'em. I know they hate it 'cause we winning and motivated, glistening and inundated with swagger. I'm trying to keep with my daughter to hear some bullshit. Not from Chicago, so don't talk to me about bullshit. Niggas in the motherfucking game wanna talk about the swag and the ice and the whips they drive. But a nigga like me getting bread, showing love, so the niggas don't respect my grind. It's going down, chasing the crown. About to be one of the illest around, like just Rihanna and Kanye. Nigga, I'm running the town. Slow it down, my vocals tight, so you can cut the. If you a dog, I'm Michael V. I take a nigga girl, I don't play fair. I take him to the bedroom, and they stay there. Wanna be mine, I'm gonna climb, give me mine. Running out of time, money on the line, gotta shine. Give it a look out when I try, won't stop. Vision in my mind, rockstar on top. Wait a minute, when a nigga really get